Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's uLaw's webinar. In today's webinar topic, we're going to be covering the reporting capabilities of the uLaw practice platform. Today's webinar has not been accredited for any CPD credits, but it is going to be a very functional as well as a presentation that's going to involve a lot of demonstration of the reporting capabilities of the uLaw product. I do welcome any questions during duration of the demonstration using our chat window. I also kindly request you to mute your phone lines and again use the chat window to collaborate with our support staff. Like every other webinar, today's uLaw webinar has a very specific agenda. And the agenda is going to be covering the various reporting capabilities of the uLaw product. If you are a current user of the product or someone who is looking to explore what the product, the legal accounting and practice management platform that uLaw offers, this is a very key feature and functionality that you should be aware of the product that it provides. As a legal practitioner, so as the product uLaw practice serves legal practitioners across Canada, and as a legal practitioner, you have two key responsibilities when you're running your business. Besides, if you want to have an overarching thought process, there are two very important key responsibilities. From a business standpoint, one, you obviously have all the compliance regulations and the law society's guidelines that need to be catered to and followed. And from a reporting standpoint, you have all of the law society's compliance reports and documents that you need to generate on a periodic basis and have it available for audit or have it available to be audit ready at any given time. So uLaw as a product does very well deliver all the functional reports that legal compliance requires from that side of the business. Now, the other responsibility that you have as a legal practitioner, again from a business standpoint, is reporting all of the documents that are needed from a CRA perspective regarding your taxes, whether that's your income tax, whether it's the provincial tax, whether it's in Ontario, the harmonized tax, GST, PST. So from a business standpoint, it's all of the important reports and documents that you need to generate, right from your trial balance to fee book, expense book, profit and loss statements, as well as the HST report that you need to manage and maintain and present to the other side of the house, which is the CRA, as well as to your accountant, maybe to file your taxes. Okay, so across these two different responsibilities, you obviously need to generate revenue through bringing new clients. You need to be able to manage a practice, a legal practice. And what we've looked to do as a product is combine the components of these three areas. So on the left-hand side, you have your law society compliance. On the right-hand side, you have your CRA compliance. And the bridge that builds or binds these two is your practice management, about how you enter client file information, invoices, dockets, as well as manage your business expenses and all the other components that result in providing all the data that is required or is behind the scene in generating these reports, right? All these reports are nothing but numbers and the data that's behind the scene, and generating that report with that data provides you with the information that you need to make informed decisions. So today's agenda is going to specifically focus on the reporting capabilities, the data insight capabilities that uLaw offers, and if you were to cover it across the product right from a client intake level, that is the contact level, to a file management, all the reports that you can generate at a file level, as well key components of law society compliance from an accounting perspective. These are the core three areas we'll talk about. And then from a practice management standpoint, we'll talk about the work in progress, timesheets, the calendarized reports that you can generate for both yourself as a sole practitioner as well as a law firm across all your colleagues and team members. Okay. We'll talk about how you can save time by focusing your effort on mostly the active files. And a law society compliance also is to generate a list of all the files that you deal with. And last but not the least, we'll focus on the HST, the trial balance, the balance sheet, on all of those office business related reports and documents. Okay. Okay. As I said, today's webinar is going to be more of a demo of the product itself. So we get into a deeper dive into how you actually go about generating these reports. It's not going to be just a slide share. So let's kind of remind ourselves of what these reports are as we go along the actual demonstration. So this is really a cue card for myself to focus on the key report capabilities. So a few highlights about some of the reports that you would find at a very preliminary contact or client intake level within uLaw, but very important, are that of the source of contact, which really gives you a great outline of where you're getting your clients from and what is really the source of the contact or the client that you've created. A fee book of that particular client at any given time. Let's say over a period of time you've built this matter for a client, and either where the client's coming back or if the client hasn't paid your bills in time, this is a great report to always have handy across all team members in your firm so that they can all look it up at any given time. And obviously you can generate simple contact lists. Okay, so we'll definitely go through each of these reports in a deeper dive. And if you look at a file management or a matter-based reporting, we have timeline reports that really give you a great understanding of when you started this file, the different aspects of the file in a very simplified timeline chart. Statement of activity, a very critical component of your file management, which truly outlines every step of the way of what you've done with that particular file. It's a great closure report if you were to close a existing file, and it's a great report to provide a very logical closure to the file and gives your end client a very good summary of everything that has been accomplished by you or your legal firm with regards to that particular matter. If you're a legal practitioner who does a bit of legal aid, we have reports that are more catered towards legal aid, such as, then you have your timesheets, you have the bill of cost, which is also a great report that you could share. Settlement statement, though it's not listed here, is another great example that I can think of, which we'll walk through real quick as we walk through each and every reporting capability at the file level. The interesting set of reports that I think a lot of legal professionals are well aware of, and these are some of the very specified audit requirements from an accounting perspective as well. We'll cover both the CRA aspects of the reporting capabilities from an accounting perspective, as well as the law society's compliance requirements from reporting capabilities on the same accounting numbers. Okay, so if you really look at it, you look at our trust ledger, trust journal, trust balance, general ledger, journal, and balance. Those are very important law society compliance documents that you generate on a monthly basis. Got your expense ledgers, fee book, expense book, even Form 9As if you're a legal professional in Ontario, inter-matter trust transfers, and very importantly, the two reports that we'll generate are the reconciliation reports. So your trust reconciliation report as well as the general reconciliation report, very, very important that you then generate them on a monthly basis. And then from a office businesses CRA standpoint, you obviously have aging receivables, very important for you as a business to understand, who are those customers who haven't paid me, or how long is a customer taking to pay me, in what areas of practice, any aging payables that you owe other vendors. fee book, invoice balance. So if you have any trust balances that are outstanding, this is a great report that outlines all those clients, any pending trust transfers that you haven't moved money from trust to general, as well as any clients that haven't paid you, giving you a single snapshot of the entire money that you can make at any given time. Pro bono reports, revenue, expense, and profit and loss. And then if you roll it up, you have your balance sheet and trial balance. Very important documents that I'm sure you've heard your accountants generate for you. If you've been in business for a while, I'm pretty sure you're very comfortable with the trial balance sheet reports. And last but not the least, depending on your situation, if you are have registered a HST number for your business, very important that you do generate the HST report depending on your time period, whether it's a quarterly, yearly. You could actually generate these reports even on a weekly, monthly basis. Okay? Again, this is just a preview. We'll actually get in very shortly into the product's demonstration to walk through each of these reporting capabilities. From a practice management standpoint, so we looked at accounting requirements, we looked at matter management, client intake management. So for your firm and for yourself also to really manage the practice, manage time, we also have reports at a calendar level, which outlines your schedule report both on a daily and a weekly basis, a timesheet both for yourself as an individual sole practitioner, as well as for others in the firm if you are a law firm, work in progress report, which clearly outlines what's the build and the planned time for the upcoming week. A lot of our clients utilize the work in progress report as well as the scheduled report to really plan the work and the tasks for the weeks ahead across their firm, across all their employees. And then you can clearly articulate client summaries, service summaries, as well as the combination of these to understand who is a top performing individual at your firm, the kind of time that they've spent working on files, and more importantly, understanding how much of revenue each individual in the firm has generated, which gives you a very clear understanding of the performers and where they spend their time. Okay? And that's pretty much it for a slide share for today. I know this was quick and easy. I'm going to spend the next 30 to 40 minutes illustrating how you would go about generating these reports. We'll create maybe some files so we can quickly understand the nature of the data that's being involved. But before I jump into it, obviously a quick message from uLaw Practice. We're a very proud Canadian legal accounting, practice management, and business accounting software, and our goal is to provide a convenient, cloud-based Canadian software that legal practitioners across Canada can use to be compliant at any given time. And if you haven't heard of us, do check us out on our website, ulawpractice.com, and we do offer no obligation 30-day trial sign-up. Okay? So I hope I've been able to set a context. Truly is going to be more of a demonstration of the reporting capabilities of the product. And we'll start with the contact, move into the matters, accounting, and time-based reports. And then I'll also focus some time towards the end of the presentation about the question mark icon and the matter analytics that particular button provides you. And if we have time, we'll also take some questions towards the end of the session. Okay? Okay, so as you can see, I'm logged into my fixtures legal professional, Mr. Roger Moore. And we looked at the reporting capabilities at each and every stage. I'm going to start with our client intake, or at a very contact level, the different reports that you can generate. So when you think about generating documents or reports are a form of a document that's in part of an output of the law firm's documentation process. And all of the reports that you can generate across uLaw, you can find it under the Document Generation tab. Okay? And we, in fact, actually have a section under each context, under contacts, under matters, under accounts, calendar. We have it as a section called as reports. I'll start with the source of contact. So let's assume there's a new client. Okay, maybe I'll add that client for you. So let's say I'm adding a new client. And I'll say Mr. Brad Murphy. And as part of the client intake format is where we now accept or enter this particular data. So this is where the legal professional Roger Moore or Roger Moore's assistant who's doing this client intake is going to ask Brad Murphy, how did you learn about our firm? Or how did you learn about the individual legal professional, Roger Moore? Okay, so this is where Brad's going to inform them that it was basically a law society referral. Okay, and this could have been anything else. This could have been a web advertisement, a KGG ad. This could have been a word of mouth referral, a personal referral. So really depending on the situation, this is a great way for you to capture where that particular client source, in this case it's called source of contact, came from. Okay, so let me just add to it by providing an address real quick, because that's having a communication or a correspondence address is an important law society requirement. Okay, so let me go ahead and click the save button so that that information is saved to the cloud. And basically uLaw saves the particular contact information of Mr. Brad into the database. And the source of contact is a report that's not generated for a specific client. The source of contact is a report that you generate for all the clients over a date range, right? So if you want to understand where are my clients coming from this entire year, from January till date, I really want to know what marketing channel is working for me, where am I getting my clients from. So let's look at Mr. Roger Moore's source of contact report. Okay. Document generation under reports, let me just do a source of contact. And if I were to do a date range, just to prove a point, and let's say I choose today's date, I'll just say today. Big deal. So I can do that. And the beauty of the cloud is that I can always generate multiple documents at the same time. So I'll generate another document source of contact, and I'll do this for the entire month. And this is a critical component of the reporting capabilities, is you can actually generate multiple reports running at the same time using the shared cloud capabilities that uLaw provides. Okay. So today, I've actually had 2 client intakes. So this also gives you a great perspective of how many clients has my firm taken in as potential clients, right? There was one for an external referral, there was personal referral as well, and there was one, none of it was not categorized. Okay? And if I generate it for the entire month, I have an understanding of where my entire spread is from. So you've got 14% coming from personal referral, I've got 7% coming from law society referral, about 15% coming from word of mouth. So this source of contact is a first step report at a client intake level, gives you a perspective of where you're getting your clients from. And for whatever reason, if you have not provided that particular source of contact information, we capture that as well. Okay, so there's about 4 clients this particular month, Mr. Benjamin Button, Mr. Sam, for whom you haven't provided the source of contact. So let's say Mr. Benjamin Button, you meet him and him doing a casual conversation, he tells you that, he got your business card at a conference, then you can actually go ahead and update that information at any given time in uLaw. So you can go back and you can basically say this was a conference, or it could be other advertising, or I'll just say seminar. Okay, conference. So once that's saved, the next time you generate that report, that data is going to reflect that percentage improvement for an additional external referral, okay, or a seminar as one of the sources of contact. And that's how the product, and that's how the data evolves. And as data evolves, the report and the information out of that report evolves as well. Right? And that's what you should expect out of any reporting product. Okay. Another important report is that of client fee book. And let me choose a appropriate client for which it makes sense. Maybe I'll choose Mr. A1, this particular company. And if I do a client fee book, obviously I can generate a quick uLaw insight about this person. So there's one trust transfer that's pending. Right away we tell you that important information. The client does not owe you any money. So he's giving you decent business. He's giving you about, or this particular company, sorry, has given you about $3,000 of business so far. And there's about $2,187 that's been paid. The remaining obviously is invoice trust total invoice balance. Interestingly enough, you've got about $7,000 of trust funds, and that's the amount of paid. So I'm assuming there are multiple matters for this particular client. So you can easily generate a report. So instead of the uLaw Insight, you can actually download a report that gives you further insight in a reporting format about the fee book situation of this particular client. Okay? As you can see, there are multiple matters, and the report breaks it down by matter, because this one client A1 actually has multiple matters that you have worked on. There was a slip and fall, clearly tells you total invoice, total paid, invoice balance, the pending trust transfer of $904. Very critical that you can now right away take the action of figuring out if you've already moved the money from trust to general. If you haven't, then this is a great example of how we help you make money. You can automatically move that money, which is truly your money to be made. Or if you have actually moved money from the trust to general but just haven't informed uLaw or the bookkeeping software, you can use this report to do that quick transfer. Okay? This is where the client fee book is a very important report. So if I were to look at the slip and fall for Mr. A1 Inc., I can jump into that particular client's matter, and maybe we'll just use this particular client as an example to move on to our next set of reports, which is that of the client or file management and matter management. Okay? And this was the question mark that we were talking about, which clearly illustrates the matter analytics, very specific to this matter. Okay. Just slip and fall. Obviously tells you that the client owes you $33 over and above what's already pending. So here's $904 of pending trust transfer that now, using that report, using that data and the information that you've recovered from that report, you can take an action on. Okay? That's another very important aspect of a report, that it drives you into a call to action. Okay, why do I generate this report? So that I can learn from it. Why do I generate this report? So that I can take a very specific action that would help me in my business. Okay. So right away I can move the money from trust to my general account, and let's assume that you do write yourself a check. Or this could have been an electronic fund transfer. And this was done today. Okay. And I'll do a transfer from that. Perfect. So let's go back to our client, Mr. A1 Inc., and let's look at all of the file level reports. So we've moved on from the contact level reports, which was the source of contact, client fee book. There's also, obviously, we looked at in the presentation itself, we said you can actually generate a client list, and you can do that right from the document generation. And each and every document generation has a compliance panel associated with it. Okay, so these are some of the client intake level compliance documents that you need to be aware of, generate if you're being asked at an audit, and we've grouped it under this simple tag. So you can generate a conflict screening report, very important, to ensure that there are no conflicts in representing this particular client. As I said, you can generate the fee book. We did that, source of contact. Even marketing or branding documents, such as envelopes and labels, can be printed right for this client. Okay? Conflict screening report is a very critical report that gives you information about any prior instance of having dealt with this individual or this company in your previous legal matter. Obviously, this is a clean slate. We haven't worked with anyone or anyone associated with A1 Inc. I think we're good to go. Okay? So hopefully that gives you a first level understanding of where to go to first generate these reports after the data has been entered into the product. And secondly, how you can actually take call to action or actions based on understanding the output or the information that you retrieve from the report, like how we did the pending trust transfer for this particular matter in this company. Now let me move along to the next category of reports that we looked at. First was at the client level. Now let's assume we've created a matter. Let's move on to the matter level documents. I'm going to take this specific example of a slip and fall because there are multiple matters for this particular company that Mr. Roger Moore has dealt with. But there's enough dockets and there's enough work done to warrant a really good report. Obviously, you can go back to generating the compliance set of documents. So these are all the Law Society's compliance documents from a matter management. Client intake documents. Okay, these are more documents rather than reports, but are meaningful nevertheless for you to explore. The client data verification is a document that you fill out to ensure have you verified that this is truly the company that you're dealing with. Or if it was an individual, how did you ensure that it was actually the individual that you were dealing with? Now you've got all your letters that you can generate, quarterly statements that you can generate. We spoke about bill of cost. We'll get to it as well in a minute. And any non-engagement letters, right? So these are all documents and letters that are important for your legal office. But let me highlight and focus your attention again on the reporting capabilities, the subsection of the document generation called reports. We spoke about the timeline chart. Okay, you can either do it for the entire set of accounts or for the matter itself, which outlines each and every touch point by date. So new retainer, if you really want to understand when was that new retainer replenished, it was on Jan 2018. When was the last work done at this particular matter? It was a telephone conversation on the 21st of July. Okay? So anyone who's just new to this matter, who's picking up this matter, can go into the timeline chart to really understand what's happened within this matter. Even told you that was the last time anything was edited in this matter was 2 months back, 2 months and 7 days. And you can also understand it from an accounting touch point, okay? When was the last time anything from an accounting touch point was done? Clearly says today, September 28th, we had done the trust transfer from trust to general. Okay? Also gives you the different ratios of the balances between the trust and the general being in red and the trust being in blue. That's what the timeline. It's a good report to give you a better understanding. If you're just catching up to learn more about this matter, maybe this is $33 has been pending for quite a bit. You may want to just generate an invoice or write off this $33 if you're not dealing with this client anymore. Okay? So getting back to that screen is going into document generation, reports, timeline, and clicking on accounts. Clearly says the legal fee invoice for this particular file was done. Then there was a trust transfer, a trust deposit, okay? A trust withdrawal, general expenses, a trust deposit of a retainer, and last but not the, well, actually the timeline is reversed. There you go. So this was the last that was done. Today, September 28th, a trust transfer was done for the $904, right? So this is the earliest transaction, the first transaction ever, Jan 8th, and this is the last transaction that happened today. And if I went into timeline and matter, that gives me the perspective of from start to finish what happened at the matter level, not at the accounting level, just the matter. When I talk matter, did you docket, did you disperse, did you generate an invoice, etc. All right, so within that same file, we looked at timeline. You could actually generate a legal aid report in the format where you can provide your client ID, you can provide your client number, a certificate number if you're dealing with legal aid, right? And this gives you a report or a document in a legal aid format. Okay, so it has your client ID, certificate number, your solicitor number, tax number. It talks about each and every docket. Tells you the total billable hours for you to sign. Very specific purpose built for legal aid reporting capabilities. And this is a relatively new report section within uLaw, is that of providing you with quick statements. These are at this particular file or matter level. So if you really want to generate, at this file level, a trust statement, you can do so right from the file. Obviously, you can generate this at the entire firm level for a time period across all clients at the accounting level, which we'll get to in a minute. But if you wanted to generate at this particular file level, you can do so by just going into statements and generating trust general to give you that information. But I'll focus, we'll get to it at an accounting perspective a bit later. But one of the interesting reports that we generate that you may want to be aware of is the settlement and accounts. Okay, so I'll first generate the summary, which gives you a very high-level summary of what's happened with this particular matter. And I'll also generate at the same time the settlement and account statement. Many times your clients, for the many questions that they may have with regards to the work rendered and the fees that have been served, this is a great document that clearly illustrates every step of the way the work that you or your firm have delivered to your client and why you're asking for the money that you're asking for. Okay? So we'll start with the trust ledger. So here's a quick trust ledger for this particular file. It's not for even this client. It's for this particular file, which is that of the slip and fall matter. Okay, so you can generate ledgers, trust ledgers right from here. And then we generated the summary And the summary document, again, you can brand this because this is not a Law Society requirement. It's more of a client-facing document. So you can have your brand on it, take the opportunity to brand it. So it kind of, again, goes back to the professionalism that you provide in providing the user experience to your end client. Okay, the whole branded, the UX, CX that we spoke about in a few weeks earlier, about the experience and the professionalism that you showcase across all your touch points with your clients. So clearly tells you that's the retainer that you received, that's the total settlement balance, any other trust funds, and the pen and the trust invoice payments that have been done so far, and the remaining balance in trust. Okay. Legal fees was about $1,188. No disbursements, no write-offs. That was paid from trust. This is an overall summary. If I were to generate the settlement and accounts, this gives you the entire professional services rendered from the starting date. Okay, the first date that you had. Obviously, this is a playground account, so obviously I apologize for the kind of descriptions that we may have, maybe a bit misleading. But it is chronologically ordered from the first day of work by calendar to the last work that was done 2 months and 7 days back, right? It gives them a full flow of all the retainers that were accepted. So how did we form the $1,449? It was through 3 check payments, check 444, 456, and 344 on 3 different dates. There was actually a settlement as well of $475. There were legal fees, invoice payments from trust, including the $904 that we transferred today, right? So this is a very thorough and a complete document that at any given time your client should be well aware of the work and the monies that's been asked, the trust money that has been withdrawn, how much is the balance, or if there is client owing, how much is that? Okay, this is a great document to send along with your final closure, or at any given time if it's a bit of a problematic client. Because when you do have a problem and there's a bit of a dispute is where you have to go back to your facts, and this document clearly outlines the facts, provided that you've actually entered all this data in the system, right? Provided you have, then this is a great document for you to reflect on. Again, document generation, statements, settlement, and accounts is really what this particular document is. Okay? Okay. You could do a very specific timesheet. Again, this could be another document where if further investigation is required, you want to generate timesheets that are specific to this matter or over a date range or for the entire matter itself. You can generate a timesheet specific to what was done. Okay? Or you can pretty much print the entire matters information as well. So here's a quick look at timesheets. Just a preview so that you can appreciate when we jump into calendar and look at the timesheet there, you kind of get a feel for what is being outlined in this document. So the timesheet specifically talks about not only the descriptive items of what was happened, but it also talks about how it happened and who was the individual, for whom that particular docket was docketed. So in this case, it tells you that it was Mr. Roger Moore who docketed that effort on the 27th, right? And it tells them the total billable hours and the estimated hours. So you actually billed him an hour extra than what you had anticipated. And if there are others in the firm that were involved in working on this file, you obviously know the division of time across that 9 hour 2 minutes across other colleagues in the firm. Okay? And this is, again, a matter print. The matter print tells you each and every docket, the billable hours. So you can look at from the 8th of Jan till the 21st of July, all the disbursements that occurred. This is the entire matter and the work that was done, right? Any additional parties that were involved in this matter. So there was actually a defendant, Mr. Adam Sandler, a representative of Adam, Gloria. And we'll also give you some insight in terms of question and answers about this particular matter. Okay, what is the invoice status of this matter? It's pending. What is the number of invoices raised so far too? Right. So there's some interesting tidbits. In fact, over 20 different or 27 different questions that we answer, very specific to this matter. It can't get more detailed than that. It goes to the extent of even answering what are the number of flat rate dockets in this matter. It tells you that in this matter, you had used 4 dockets as flat rates. Right? And from a billable standpoint, again, there are 2 more reports that I'll draw your attention to. So there's, as you can see, there's quite a few reports. Once the data is in the product, there's quite a few reports that you could generate, even at just a file level, not even at a compliance perspective. You've got reports that are timeline-based, legal aid specific. You've got statements and accounts that can illustrate exactly what was done, how much of money was asked for that you can send your client. Or you can generate the entire matter itself by doing a matter print. Specific timesheets to give you a better understanding of the collaborative nature of that work done across multiple individuals and the amount of effort, both estimated and planned or planned hours versus the billable hours. And now for the last 2 reports at the file level that I'd like to highlight are the statement of activity and bill of cost. The fact that you've done the settlement statement, the statement of activity is more or less similar in nature, just has a different look and feel to it, right? But it also gives you the actual hours and the billed hours. That's a big difference between the settlement account and the statement of activity. It tells you what you had planned for and how much you actually billed them. I'm sure you can appreciate there was just one particular docket, and that is that of the title insurance policy, where you had spent 30 minutes, but you have actually billed the client an hour and a half. And maybe that's where the dispute is, but it's easy for you to track down that as well. This is why the planned and the billed hours are different by 1 hour. So by just looking at a report, and I've never even looked at this report before, I can clearly walk through where the differences are, right? And that's the outcome or the learning of looking at the data. That's the information that I've been able to take out of this specific report for this file. And last but not least, I'll generate the bill of cost as well. The bill of cost obviously outlines the total fee, including HST. Okay, so for the legal fee of $251.99, that's the HST component. And for the $904 that we transferred, it was $800 and $104 of HST. Okay, for a total of $136.76 of HST that you have received from this particular client. So a quick snapshot before I move on to my accounting and then to my calendar reports, and with another 10 minutes that we have. At a file level, so we looked at how at a client intake level, the source of contact, client fee schedule, as well as the client list can be generated. And once you move on to creating a file, you can start to generate right from statement of activity, bill of costs, compliance reports, and reports under timeline, legal aid, settlement accounts, as well as individual trust and general statements that you can generate for this particular matter. Timesheet, one of my very favorite reports that a law firm loves to generate out of uLaw. And then if you wanted a comprehensive report on anything that's happened in that matter, we have a report under matter as well. Okay? And one question is, these reports, the digital copy, anytime you generate this report, is basically pushed down to the individual device that you're using to generate these reports. But you can always go back into uLaw and generate these same reports again and again, as long as the data is in the product. It's all in the cloud. It makes it anytime available, almost like an on-demand, just-in-time reporting capability. Okay. Let me move on to the accounting components, both law society related as well as CRA components of it. So document generation. This is divided into two major sections called statements and reports. From a law society standpoint, you have all these documents that you need to generate that are all encompassed within the compliance panel. Okay, so these are all the law society compliance documents for financial management. Starting with the trust reconciliation report that you can generate for the entire month of September. One of the key differentiating capabilities of the product is that we allow you to do a complete preview of every trust ledger or general. Okay, so there's quite a few transactions across this month, so let me just go ahead and review all of them. This is basically, once it's in blue, it means that I've already previewed it in my previous weeks, so I don't have to worry about it. So I'm just going to focus my attention on these black transactions that have occurred more recently. I'll change the bank date to the 26th. And I'll say I'm very comfortable with all these transactions so that I can reconcile the entire month of September's trust reconciliation. So this is basically just comparing the transaction ledgered in the product and comparing it with a real-life transaction that occurred in the bank. Okay. And then for you to tell us what the bank balance is. And once these two numbers match, here's your trust reconciliation report. Very, very important report from a financial standpoint. And once you have generated a trust reconciliation report followed by a general reconciliation report, you can be very confident about the ledgers and journals that you would generate both under trust and general. Okay? If I were to now generate my client's trust report, you can generate this at a click of a button. This is on demand. The fact that you've done your reconciliation, you can always go back in time because you've firmed up the numbers. So here's your reconciliation report for the month of September. Tells you all the transactions that have been cleared. Tells you the total trust balance. Or actually, those were the cleared transactions. The trust balance should be up here. $288,784 is the trust balance, and then we, automatically append this report as per the law society's requirements with the individual client's trust listing. But this is a summary or an individualized items of how you add up to form the $288,000. Okay. So now let me generate the appropriate ledgers and journals. So I've just clicked on the trust ledger. Unlike the trust ledger that we generated for that specific client, A1 Inc., this is a trust ledger for the month of September across all clients, including the A1 Inc. that we did today, of the $904 of trust transfer. So basically every transaction that occurred today and every transaction that occurred within this time period of the first to the today's date with the outstanding balance in trust. Very important, and this is exactly the template that the Law Society's bookkeeping guidelines requires you to generate. Equally important to know when this statement was printed or was generated. Okay? And the same thing goes for your general. Click of a button, you generate your general ledger. Let's say we're going to do it for the month of September as well. The bottom line that I'm trying to illustrate is once the data is in and once you've done your reconciliation report, which is an equally important report, every other report in the uLaw product is just a click of a button. It's just something that we generate in a format that's compliant for your convenience, at a click of a button, across all clients that have been dealt with in this particular month. Okay? So you can see for something as convoluted as this particular client, Sam, and all of the touch points with the balance owed. So there's about $7,000 and $790 of balance in this particular matter. Same thing with receipts, payments, disbursement, even Form 9As. So let's say you've been doing a lot of electronic fund transfers from your trust account into your general account, including the one that we did today. And let's say you haven't been doing your Form 9As as and when you have, you technically have to do it as and when it happens, but let's say you haven't been doing it, you can always catch up by generating the Form 9As for that entire month. Print it, review it, and sign it. And a lot of clients actually do it during audit time too, which is something pretty cool that some of the auditors have actually appreciated. Though it's not a great practice, but at least we've got your back. And we're including, look at that particular $904 that we transferred today. That was the last transaction of the EFT on 28th of September. Okay. Now let's look at the other side of the business accounting, which is all about your business. So under reports, you have your balance sheet, as I mentioned. You can do a detail. In fact, we have further categories under the balance sheet itself. You can do a detailed by category, a summary, even a date range. And this is very significant because this is a very complex functionality to provide you a balance sheet or a specific date range. Okay? So let me just do the detail. As of today, the entire firm's balance sheet. Generate a trial balance, and this is something that your accountant does for you, which we're saying if you are good at entering your data, this is something that you can generate right off uLaw. You technically don't need someone else to generate this for you, as long as you've done the data entry right and you kind of know what you're doing. You don't have to be an accountant to generate this document. We clearly tell you the trust balance, the assets in your bank, cash assets, the receivables, any deposits prepaid, any fixed assets, goodwill, HST payable, HST receivable, right? GST, PST as well. Liabilities, you've got an equipment loan of $64,000 for this firm. Any capital that's in enrolled as well. So far, there's $29,000 invested as capital, about $13,000 drawn from the capital. And last, we give you the revenue, the total revenue that you've generated for this whole year, broken down by the different areas of practice, right, from immigration to Highway Traffic Act, okay, and any other types of revenue categories that you may have. Very comprehensive. I know it's just too many pages, but this is a very comprehensive report. And that's a profit. This is a fantastic profit for this law firm. I wish I could do this kind of number, but yeah, this is a great number to be proud of. The retained earnings for the current year are profitable at $332,000. Okay? So that was your balance sheet, and then we generate trial balances as well. It's another important report. It tells you basically all the accounts. So moving on to the question about taxes. So one of the components of uLaw is that we capture both HST paid, right, as through office expenses or business expenses that you've incurred or disbursements that you've incurred, as well as HST received through the invoices that you generate. So right at the top, we looked at balance sheet, trial balance. We have revenue, expense, even a profit loss statement, fee book, expense book. Under other, we have some very, very important reports like the invoice balance. I mentioned how the invoice balance pretty much tells you the amount of money that you can make, including any trust balances that have to be moved or pending trust transfers, right? So I'm just going to generate that particular report under other. I could even generate an aging report. Let me do an aging receivables. And it gives you a very different perspective. So it not only tells you who owes you what money, the aging report also tells you for how long they owe you that money. If you want to charge them a particular interest, you can do that too. From a HST standpoint or general taxes standpoint, depending on the jurisdiction that you're from, we have this one place called taxes where you can generate your HST, GST, and PST. Let me just do a HST for this month of September. So this pretty much tells you in one snapshot for this particular month. It tells you in one statement that you owe the government $1,600 or $1,000 and $1,619. Sorry, right? How did we come about this number? Because we've calculated the HST that you've paid as per what you've told the software, and the HST that you received. So we subtract the two. So you've paid $481 this whole month, and you've received $2,000, and the difference is the amount that you owe back to the government, right? So from a tax standpoint, there are two things. There's obviously the income tax that you need to generate, and that's purely based on the revenue, the expense, the profit and loss puts these together. Okay, so those are documents you can provide your accountant. You can in fact wow them by giving them your balance sheet, the trial balance. That reduces the amount of effort that your accountant needs to spend in ensuring that your books are done right? Because you still need that. If you are someone who needs that peace of mind of a certified individual verifying it for you, which is meaningful, which is understandable, the least you can do is reduce the amount of time that they would have to spend on it, because the amount of time they spend on it is directly proportional to, in many cases, the amount of money they would charge you, right? So for the $29 or $39 or $44 that you pay uLaw, we try and maximize the value that you get out of the product by providing you with these reports already. Okay? So it was right under taxes. And let me look at the accounts receivable report. This is a report that you should be looking at on a daily basis, if not on a weekly basis, that tells you which client owes you what money or what date range. And this is incorrigible because John Bell owes us, I don't know, this $4,000 since February, maybe even earlier than that, right? Mr. John Snow White, we all know that name, owes us $276 since February as well. And here's some examples where the Quebec immigration consultant owes us $400, but it's only as early as this month of September, right? And Sam owes us about $7,000 or $8,000 as of this month. And this is my invoice balance report, which would probably be the last report I look at from an accounting perspective. And the critical component of that is this particular column, which is pending trust transfer. So this is the eligible amount of money that you've already freed up by generating an invoice to a client who's paid you, let's say, a retainer. And either you haven't moved that money of trust money from trust to a general account in real life, in which case you have to generate this report and really take each and every client into matter and generate move that money from trust to general. Or if you have moved it in real life, then this report gives you a perspective that you haven't reflected that movement into the uLaw product. And it's important that you do it in its appropriate time cycle because of the reconciliation and the repercussions of that, right? If $904 have to be moved or can be moved as early as June 2018, and if you haven't moved it in uLaw till September, then you've missed, for some reason you missed that $904. Or at the time of reconciliation, if you see that difference, you can generate this report to really understand if you haven't moved those numbers. Okay? And the last set of reports would be under a calendar. We spoke about timesheets, so I'm going to focus specifically on the timesheet itself. But you can see we've got timesheet, revenue by employee, timesheet by employee, client revenue summary. So where does your revenue come from by client? The service summary. So let me do my revenue by employee. This is assuming that this is a law firm with multiple colleagues involved. And I'll also generate a timesheet by employee. Same concept, but without the dollars. Right? The revenue by employee is actually a very, very important document if you want to get a better handle for your top performing individuals, want to understand how that spread is in terms of who's bringing the money, especially if it's a firm that has multiple stakeholders, right? So you've got by client, by actually individual lawyers in the firm or paralegals in the firm. Abdir Singh has about, for this month, it's about $125 worth of money. Roger Moore, who's the main lawyer here, actually we have a summary at the end as well. So for the total firm this month, you've estimated 42 hours, you've billed 45 hours, and you've got about $20,000 worth of revenue. And that's the spread. But out of the 20,000, 19,000 came from the main lawyers, legal counsels, paralegals, and about $75 from the assistants. Okay? And if you had 3 individuals in the company, you've got 19,000 coming from Roger Moore, about 125 coming from Abdir Singh, and Sandra Bullock was the assistant, had about $75. So that was the revenue, which is great, right? It tells you by individual. And this is the timesheet. Just the timesheet. I think I did it for the individual day. I should have done it for the whole month. And the last but not the least, I'll do the client revenue summary. I think I did it today. Do it for monthly. The client revenue summary, as the name sounds, pretty much outlines the revenue that you've generated over that date range, and it also gives you a split by client. So for this particular month, you've got Jonathan Ebony, where you've estimated 1 hour, you have billed him 1 hour, and the revenue that you've generated out of him is $600, right? So this is a slightly different way of dividing that same $20,000 that you made this month. The previous report gave you who brought that money within the firm. This particular report tells you what clients contributed to this revenue stream. Okay, so you can easily categorize them with obviously Sam bringing in about $6,000, or the client Sam is one of the major revenue generators as a client. So with that, I hope I've been able to provide you or drive home the message of how, for one, reporting capabilities are important for you as a legal professional, so that you can draw information out of what that data has to tell you, so that you can make informed decisions, whether it's trust transfers, whether it's ensuring that you've got all the payments lined up, understanding top performing employees in the firm, understanding expenses, how much of revenue you've made that particular month, the profit and loss mode, trial balance, whatever the report that you're generating, understanding that you can actually take call to actions or actions based on what you've learned from that report is really the critical component of why you generate that report to begin with. Okay? So once again, thank everyone who's joined me today on our business reporting webinar. It's not accredited for CPD credits, but I sincerely hope that it was your time well spent. And you can generate these reports as insights or dashboards, in fact, right from your mobile phone by downloading our uLaw app on your iOS or Android phone. You can basically start to generate all these analytics and dashboards and reports right within your mobile phone. Okay? So we'd appreciate it if it makes sense. If it's prudent, kindly do download our app, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you very much.